Hey there, viewers, and welcome back to the Self-Made Auto Channel. We're inside the 2010 Hyundai Accent. I think it's an Accent or Elantra. It's the smaller one. And the fella here lives across town. And he told me that this weekend, today's a Monday, that this weekend the car started running like poo and he couldn't keep it running. He had to start it 6 or 7 times and it always wants to stall. And the engine light came on. All he has done so far is to check the gas cap. So I had him bring it over and drop it off. He said it started fine to get it here, but then when he got here it stalled in my driveway. So what I want to do before we do anything is see what the engine light's on for. I don't want to warm the car up. Perhaps, like, let's say we have something wrong with the coolant sensor and it's stuck at 80 degrees when it's really 24 degrees outside. That's going to make them run crappy until they warm up. Then everything's seems to be fine. There is no temperature gauge in this. It is USA. It is the Elantra, the 2010 Elantra 2-liter Doke. Excuse me, got some wicked heartburn this morning. Whew, too much coffee. I'm going to pop right in the ECM here. I've nixed the whole screen recorder on the old Android here because it just wasn't happy with me, and I wasn't happy with it. So we'll read codes. Everybody take a guess what code's going to be in it. I don't know. I'm thinking, I don't know. Holy smokehouse. We have a few codes stored in there. Let me get the glare out. There's your screen recorder for you people. Let's see if anything makes sense here. Mass airflow, volume A, fuel trim. Okay. Large EVAP leak. Maybe it's filling with a gas cap. IX system higher than expected. IX system circuit 1 low, circuit 2 low. This is pretty interesting. Mass airflow low. Let's see what it does when we try to start it. Oh, it's up 1500 RPMs. Let me put it in gear. That's interesting. Seems to kind of function. I'm going to go in here and find some data. Let's see if we can find anything that is relevant. Well, let's see. We can do pounds per hour or kilograms per hour on mass airflow. That is of no value to me. I tell you what I'm going to do. Coolant temp looks good, 71 degrees. Target idle and actual idle are right on. It's calling for 1180. It's at 1180. All right. Fuel trim is around 0, plus or minus 1%. Tell you what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop right out. We're going to go right into Global OBD2. I want to go generic because I don't think we're going to need anything in the OEM. So while I'm into the global side of things, these are the codes we get here, all pertaining to idle air control valve problems of sorts. Idle control system higher than expected, and then idle control valve closing, opening, ground. Idle speed control valve closing, open ground short. It's interesting. It appears to have a problem with the IAC, which would make sense for the complaint, but the idle air control valve seems to have control. I think this has electric steering, so that's doing me no good. What else can we put on it for loads? Idle air control valve may not be functioning. I load the engine and it does bring the RPMs down, but it's also warming up at this time. Let's go warm the engine up all the way and see what it does, because the first time it acted up was I think he was at somebody's house or something and came back out to leave, so I don't know if the engine was warmed up at that point. But we can see if the idle air control valve's working, and see if we can't duplicate the complaint the other day when he went to leave with it. I know it was cold because he told me Saturday night his girl went to leave that morning, and then it was, you know, start, stall, start, stall, start, stall. It wouldn't stay running unless you kept your foot on the gas, and then it would stall. But just looking here, your in generic data, fuel trims are good. We're at 145 right now. Everything else seems to be functioning. So let's take her for a shake. So I looked through some more data before we took off. Oh, seatbelt. It's only annoying when you're making a video, I guess. What I was saying is everything looked normal, and the best I could tell, the idle air control valve works. Shut the car off, started it a few times. It flares up, it comes back to an idle. Commanded versus actual engine RPM are, you know, within 30 RPMs of each other. We might have to leave this one sitting and try it again. I definitely don't like to go chasing ghosts. Of course, with the idle air control system, if it was goofed up, that would stand a reason to, you know, screw up mass airflow readings and fuel trims and, you know, everything of that nature. So I'm not going to go chasing ghosts. The large EVAP leak, I'm curious to know if, you know, let's say for example like a purge valve stuck open, how is that going to affect the idle and the mass airflow and the fuel trims? You know, that would also screw it up, and it would also give it a large EVAP code potentially. So those are all things to keep in mind here. So far so good. I did some steady cruising to, you know, make sure that it does open the purge valve and fully warm up. Actually, you know what, we'll go straight. We'll do some stop signs. Just for grins and giggles. Oh, you guys want to run across town and see something? Add a little bit of excitement here in the village. I guess it was Saturday. Yeah, it was Saturday. High-speed chase. Had the po-po. Chasing a Beamer through town. A couple of intoxicated gentlemen, we'll call them. And they come terrorizing through town in the BMW. And then, as all good car chases ended in tragedy. No personal injury, I guess, except for maybe the people driving. But they ended up hitting 3 cars and did a really good job. We'll go over here. We'll go around the old Alexander. We're on Oliver right now. We'll hang it right here. We'll head down East Ave. We'll come up here and hang a Louie on the county road. And then we'll show you the carnage. I don't know how they got enough speed to do what they were doing, but it turned out really well. Pretty impressive. I'm building you up for it, ain't I? So apparently they came off County Road 8 here, which is the road straight ahead. They hooked it right here on the Alexander. Cops in pursuit. Now they come down here and blasted these vehicles that they were parked in the street. I'm gonna have to move you. So you got this old Chevy with a wooden box on it. Let me rotate you. So they blasted that thing. Total carnage there. Come down, hit this little guy, hit this white truck, blasted that, then ended up hitting this Dodge. And that's where the whole kit and caboodle come to a rest. I would have loved to see that. Then one of the alleged perps got out of their car and ran up into the hill here behind the house. And then of course the cops tased him. So it worked out good. Everybody's in jail. Those people are going to get their cars probably replaced, I imagine. The old white Chevy might be able to get a taillight, but The black one with the wooden bed, that one smoked, and then that Dodge there, looks like it broke the whole control arm off it. And then the BMW, of course, is totaled. So good stuff. Don't get to see too much action here in the village. So I just pulled in the shop here and I think it's broke. I'm going to show you. Our target RPM is 680, but we're actually at 11 something. Okay, so there's our higher than expected engine RPM. What's it do if we shut it off? Back key on. I'm going to start it. Same thing, it's expecting 680, but we're at, almost 1100, 1000 something. So it is broke. Fantastic. Good. Well, at least that portion of it, I'm sure if we fix that, that's going to cure all of its other ailments, whatever's causing the idle to stay high. That's an idle speed motor of some sort. I assume it's a 4-wire type stepper motor. Feels like there's 4 wires in there. Seems to be stuck. There's what data I'm looking at. I'm curious to know if the ECM is trying to control it. It appears that it's trying to control it. Yep, that's why I gave it a couple rev ups. So it is trying to open it and then close it. But it doesn't appear to be changing, at least on the car. Okay. And I imagine if it is stuck in the open position, so it's bypassing air, to control the idle. So it's just basically a controlled vacuum leak that's metered air. It's downstream of the mass airflow, and it just creates a bypass of the throttle plate to control the idle. And I imagine if it's stuck, let's say it's physically stuck or it's just broken, the coils in it don't work, then it could have been stuck closed or stuck low at one point, creating his low idle and such. But I remember correctly, let me just check the phone here. Nope, just a YouTuber. I think we had circuit codes, didn't we? So I'm curious if we can just get the resistance value of the coils and see if one of them is open. So yeah, we have a 1505 and a 1507 and a 507, higher than expected RPM. So idle speed control. I gotta turn this off. Damn YouTubers. Okay, that gets annoying after about the 700th call today. Let's see. Where were we? Actuator circuit 1 low, circuit 2 low. So that's kind of interesting. I'm going to look up code set criteria on these, see what they are, see if we get some specs, some directions. I don't see a lot of problems with idle speed motors, simply because most cars we work on don't have them, because the days of the throttle cable are pretty well long gone. So after a bit of looking, it appears that it's going to be a 3-wire sensor or 3-wire control. I'm going to take it and unplug it. It looks like it uses the common power. And it is a 3-wire. Common power, and then it uses the ground to control the opening and the closing. Key on, we should have power. I believe it was on the center terminal, pin 2. Get a ground here. Make sure our test light works. And that does not work on the negative, but it works on the positive. We have battery power, okay? And then it did give us some resistance specs. I think one of the coils was around 11 to 13 and the other one was like 14 to 16. Something along those lines. So we're just gonna go through and see if we can't check those. Wrong ones, fella. use this meter here. I don't really care which coil's which at this point. I just want to see if any of them are open. So we'll leave that on the 40 ohm scale. We'll make sure our leads are good. Okay, they are. I'm just going to go from the power to one coil. There's one. There's the other. So there's 10.4 ohms. We'll check the other coil. And that one's about 12 ohms. So the resistance spec they had published was for 68 degrees. So there's that. That seems to function. It did. We can check it with the scope to make sure the ECM has control of it. So I just want to share something with you guys. I am a big fan of Hyundai Kia's factory service info. They usually always have like nice colored pictures, good descriptions, code set criteria, what it takes to, you know, set the code, how the affected circuit works. You know, it talks about this one, you know, how it bypasses there around the throttle plate, basically what we've talked about. You know, it's a permanent magnet. You know, the coils, how it works. They're both, you know, ground side switched, and the valve rotor rotates to control bypass airflow. But then one thing that's always neat, here we've got the resistance values of temperature, opening coil, closing coil, and they're all over here, 11 to 12 and 14 to 16. Some of their stuff, they will actually give you a waveform. I don't know, probably, let's go, what was the other code? 0507, I think it was, not 570, 507. They're usually pretty because they're pro scope, which is kind of nice. Let's see here. Let's get to this, and here we go. So there they'll give you what they were looking at on their scope and a little brief description of that, and they leave their, you know, their scope, so they were looking at it at, you know, 2 milliseconds per division. Max voltage, average. They give you a few things on there, so you can actually, you know, if you're like, what, you know, what's a good waveform look like, you know, when this thing's in control, if you don't really know or you're new to scopes. Hyundai's usually pretty good about that, and a couple other OEs are picking that up too. Oh, jeez Louise, things get a little hectic around here at SMA. I've taken care of a few jobs in the meantime, and I also sent Miss Marie down to the salvage yard to get us a used idle air control valve. Now here, this is the OG. This is the one that's, for whatever reason, isn't functioning. So I put the used one on she got. She grabbed this little connector too. So we'll keep that around. That'll make, you know, resistance checking easy if we ever do one of these again. So we'll save that. She took it off a 2009 Hyundai with the big 2.0. So that's on there. The customer was here and we were chewing the fat about deer hunting. So while he's standing there, I just took and checked the air filter. I also cleaned the throttle body while he was standing here, so just, you know, a rag, and it wasn't that dirty. That's about as dirty as it was, so I just wanted to make sure that that's all clean, especially when we're dealing with the idle system, because what I am going to do is reset the adaptive values on it, and I assume that's the learned idle position too. So before I reset adaptives, I like to make sure the throttle body is clean, and I just use a little, you know, carbon choke from the CarQuest, not a sponsor, and a rag, but like I say, that was pretty clean. So I'm going to kick the key on. I'm going to clear the codes. We're going to reset the adaptive values and see what it does. Let me turn the key on here, folks. Hold on. It's almost lunchtime here. Time got away from us pretty fast today. So key on, I just did a code erase. All right, and then I think special functions. Yep, it's under special functions. We're going to reset the adaptive values. When ready, press reset. Are you sure? Yes. It has been complete. So now we'll bring up some live data. I left the scope hooked. Well, I plugged it back in. I don't know if I have them in the same slots. But we're going to look at target, actual, command. And then we're going to hit show selected. I'm going to fire this pig up and we'll see what it does. It might idle a little funky at first. By funky, I mean maybe a tad low. But so far so good. Commanded at 690, we're, you know, around that. I see our idle speed command is a little different at 34%. So far so good. Let's see what see if our scope data matches. And it does. We're running at what? Current value of 33.3%. That's at 33.3. Everything's looking good there. It still seems to be in control. Give her some beans here. All right. Seems fine there. That other one is getting so freaking hot. You couldn't even put your fingers on it. This one's starting to get a little warm, but probably about as warm as its surroundings. I do want to take and drive the little guy just to make sure everything's okay, because it didn't really seem to act up until we drove it. And the noon whistle just blew. Because it's noon, so that means I need to eat. So another observation I can make is using bidirectional controls, I can actually control this one. Where before I didn't show this because I played around with this test a little bit, and I was watching my scope data, and it didn't really seem to be changing, like, almost like the bidirectional control wasn't working, but here it clearly appears to be working. Big lag when you go to do it. Right now we're at about 34% duty cycle. It just takes it a while. I always doubt your scan tools whether the test is actually functioning or not. And evidently it can only go up to 900. So I'm going to hit finish here. And it seems to be stuck there at this point. I don't know if we got to cycle the key or what the story is. I'm going to go ahead and do that. It's still commanding at 900 RPM or 890, and we're holding at 900, so perhaps we have to cycle the key. Sometimes I don't like bidirectional controls because they like to do funky things. That sounds like it reset. So yeah, it'd be nice to have the, I don't know, the G scan or whatever it is for these cars, but I think sometimes when Altel and the other Chinese scan tools, are stealing their information from the OE, I think some things get kind of lost in translation, if you will. But so far so good. Let's warm it up. See if it remains well. If not, we'll keep chasing whatever we're chasing, but it appears we've repaired it. I'm curious to know about the EVAP leak, if that is a legitimate code. He did mention, let's go back to the gas hole. That's way back here. He did mention his gas tap, he's noticed has been funky. So let's see if that's true. Figure out how to open that thing. It says it no longer clicks. Yeah, I mean, it's still, the V10's still there. Top of the filler neck is wicked rusty. Let me show you. Enhance, enhance, keep enhancing. So you can see that's pretty crusty there. That's a pretty common leak point. Super crusty, so that's a relatively easy fix. If that's, indeed the source of the leak. We'll stuff our rag in there. Then you take the grinder to it. No, don't take the grinder to it, you ding dong. Give her a little hole polish. Bad idea. She was real crusty on the lip. Then blow the rust off. I think it's pretty pitted. So there's that. Now I don't know if that's the source of the large leak, but frankly we're not going to do an EVAP smoke test or anything on it. Now I usually take a little bit of silicone grease, you know, some Sil Glide we can put on there. This guy's pretty cool, local customer, so you know, if there is an issue remaining with a large EVAP leak, I'm sure he will, you know, just come back and tell me. Of course, I'm not gonna, you know, charge him for any type of EVAP testing, because frankly, we didn't do any. But we'll do this, see if it alleviates that problem. Yeah, it just doesn't have its click, but you can feel we have good penetration of the O-ring, and we can see we got a clear glob all the way around it that should be sufficiently sealing. So we'll leave it at that for right now. Because we reset the adapters, we're gonna have to go through some of the idle relearn process here. We'll turn on some loads, lots of them. Make sure it can control itself. Like I say, electric steering, so that doesn't matter. Shut loads back off. Let me get a 2-footer in here so I can give her some throw. Usually it's just a matter of driving them. They usually adapt quite quickly. Let's grab our scan tool. Oh, hold on, folks. Everything's looking good there. Bring that with us so we're not doing the dance. Everybody's getting vertigo at this point. Get them in the old one-handed handy here. Let's see, set that down. Shut that off, shut that off. Anything change here? I'm still commanding 740. Turn that back on. It's about the only kind of loads you can put on this engine are the loads of the electrical style. Of course, our idle speed control duty cycle changes as the load changes, but I think we're good. Let's ride. Alright, so far so good. We head down. Ordered me a sub for lunch. We'll pick up the sub. Jeep, wheel bearing. Subaru, wheel bearing. Impala, wheel bearing. Today's wheel bearing day. At SMA. Mrs. O is not there today, so I gotta fend for myself. Therefore, I'm gonna get a sub. She would be highly disappointed with its cancer-causing processed meat and white bread, all of which are illegal in our homestead. Not when I'm on my own in the wild. Everything is escalating quickly. I'm back at the shop. Got my sub. Supposed to be done at noon, but it's a little afternoon now. It's actually 12:26. I was on the phone there with Mrs. O, so I couldn't record that. So I'm back at the shop. Been sitting here, key off. I'm gonna take the key on. We're gonna fire this pig up. Make sure everything's good, and it seems to return to an idle nicely there. I'm gonna pop right in gear just to make sure there's no funny business. Everything seems good. All right. So needless to say, I think we're okay. That almost rhymed. I'm gonna go in and eat my lunch. Got a service and an inspection and a Dodge with no heat. Sounds like broken blend doors. Yeehaw. And then a bunch of wheel bearings and whatnot. And then I'd like to have this vehicle sit and leave it, because personally I would like to run it through a drive cycle. I think on our little short jaunt there around town, I doubt that anything happened, but I would feel a whole lot better even though I said that this is, you know, local customer, good guy. You know, got no problem running the drive cycle himself. We have 5 monitors incomplete and 3 that are complete. No codes. It's kind of chilly out today. I don't know, it's starting to warm up. This doesn't have a thermometer, probably, I don't know, 30s. It snowed. However cold it's got to be to snow. I'll let it sit here. Maybe right towards the end of the day, we'll hop in this pig about 5 o'clock, take a jaunt. These usually run a cycle pretty quick, and I'd feel a whole lot better giving it back to him, knowing, like, you know, we've done the best we could. Looked like your idle air control valve was receiving commands to work. It wasn't physically stuck. Something's, you know, wonky in the magnetic part of the stepper motor there, or of, it's not really a stepper motor, I guess, in the part of that motor. So I don't know. This is what it is. I don't look into it too deep. Don't go too deep. So let's wait. Let's run a drive cycle. Oh, it's the end of the day as I know it. But we still got to drive a car. Oh. So, folks, it's nighttime now. Gavin is the only one remaining. We're going to go out. We still want to drive the Hyundai. There she sits. I think got everything else done today. Well, I never got the wheel bearing in the Subi, but had a bazillion other things happening. Alright, I left the keys in it. So first thing first, she's a cold start. She's been sitting since we parked it. Obviously. Okay, oops, left turn signal on there, fella. Ooh, got a little belt squeal there. Alright, that seems to work there. I'm going to let it go through a warm-up. And then we're going to take her for a little rep. The joys of owning your own business, right? Or the fact that I just want to know this car's fixed before it's gone. I'm going to jump into OBD2 generic. Now, I did print out the drive cycle chart. I thought Hyundai ran them pretty quick, but here's this little guy in case you want to take and print screen and save that. But essentially, 0 to 40 degrees Celsius, start, idle for 5 minutes, park in neutral. You got to go up to 50 miles an hour within 15 seconds. Maintain that for 8 minutes. From 50 to 0 in park or neutral, and let it idle for 15 minutes. And then there's some other intervals here of 0 to 55 and 55 to 0, and then some intervals there at the very end from 40 to 50, and then back and idle and drive for 1 minute. I assume that last bit is probably catalyst, oxygen storage capacity, and I assume the 15 minutes idle and park or neutral after the 8-minute drive is probably EVAP. Anyhow, I don't have time for all that mess, but we're gonna take it for a shake. Better put a seat belt on. If it doesn't run, I'm gonna just have to give it back to him because, well, just because. So let's ride. All right, are we off? Are we in drive? Nope, we're not. Here we go. We got headlights. We got everything. Tundra's filthy as crap, but whoa, these brakes are touchy. He did also mention about the squealy belt, so chances are the vehicle will be here in the morning because he's not going to come get it tonight. And I'll readjust the belts. These have all mechanical adjusters on them. No auto tensioner. 2 separate belts. That's windshield's filthy. I don't know if that helps. I think it's on the inside. So one might ask, where is the best place to do a drive cycle? The answer to that question is on your dyno machine, which I don't have or nobody in our area has. The other answer to that would be close by to us, right there, that turn we just went by in Michigan Hollow, is the freeway. So 2-lane, hop over there in the slow lane, do your thing. People are pissed they can just pass you, you know, so doing them sometimes on these, you know, local roads here is kind of tough because we'll get somebody right up behind us. They're on us tight and they're getting upset and they can't pass till the dotted line, or at least until they get mad enough and then they pass. But it is what it is. Typically, I find that just normal driving will get the drive cycle done. For example, just you know, if your customer's, you know, cool and understanding and know that there may potentially be, you know, another underlying problem, like this car may be, you know, an EVAP leak, you know, maybe it wasn't that gas hole, just take and drive it. You know, inspection's not due on this car for, you know, a long time, so take and drive it. Light comes on, come see me. If not, happy driving. But then there's other customers that you want to 100% verify your fix, so you have no choice but to run the drive cycle. And I've often wondered about that when I go down and visit Keith down at New Level Auto down there in Staten Island. It's like, how do they ever run a drive cycle? Because it's all stop and go. You know, you're going 60, then you're going 0, and that all happens within about 5 seconds. And then you're sitting in traffic and idling, and, you know, I just don't know how it ever happens. And I suppose that could, you know, propose a problem. But just something I think about. So anyways, long story short, get on a 2-lane, 3-lane highway, stay over in the slow lane, and do your thing. We got to be getting close here, folks. Oh, all but one. So we have 7 total, right? Or no, I'm sorry, we have 7 complete, 1 incomplete. Wonder what we have left. Because we might just call it quits right now. Because if I got the EVAP to run, that's all I was concerned about. Let's see, since DTC cleared, we will see. Fuel system, check. Misfire, check. Comprehensive, check. Catalyst, check. EVAP system, check. O2 heater, check. EGR, check. What are we missing? Did I skip one? Oh, here we go. Oxygen sensor. Oxygen sensor monitor is the only one that has not run. I don't know if that's a key off monitor or not. Give it here about another 30 seconds. We're going to take off. I'll do the little hoopties here and see, but it looks like it's ran everything. EGR, the whole bit, everything except the O2. Let's make sure that we have no pending codes for EVAP, and that'll tell us that, you know, our gas hole was probably our leak, which is good. And we have no pending codes, so that's good. And the vehicle seems to be idling fine, which I guess was our original problem. So anyhow, let's ride. Cruise control is also real helpful during your drive cycles. Whoa, hang on, I got too much torque, the old Hyundai. So we're gonna set our cruise here at 40. Then we'll go for a minute, and then I'll accelerate as it says here. Somebody coming behind me, they're gonna be pissed. Accelerate for 5 seconds to 50. And then back to 40 for a minute, and then up to 50, and back to 40, up to 50, and back to 40. Do that a bunch. You see, folks, they'll just pass you. It's no big deal. Oh, too many clicks. Oh, I guess I could just use this thing. Oh, it doesn't turn them ones on. Never mind. We're back at the shop. We're done pissing people off and driving like a weirdo. Like, oh, I'm going 40. Now you want to pass me? Now I'm going 50. You know, one of those guys. Let's see where we are at. So we pop in here to vehicle stats. Oh, you done did good, AA Ron. We got 8 complete, 0 incomplete. So that means the entire drive cycle has run in its entirety. Let me go in here and just make sure. Of course it is. Okay, okay, okay. Everything is okay. Everybody's run. Everybody's happy. Let's make sure we don't have any pending codes. It's interesting to see that it ran that O2 sensor on the very last one. No DTCs in the generic side of things. We're going to hit the recycle button here, and we're going to come back into the OEM side. Now I know some of you may think that this is overkill, but at this point I can send the vehicle with confidence to know like it is 100%. Shoot, I just hit auto scan. I'll let it do that, and we'll chit chat a little bit. And everything seems to work. It seems to idle good. I'm going to bring it in tomorrow and do the belt adjustment, or Josh will, one of us will. Let's see, it just scanned the engine on the OEM side and no faults, so that's good. I'll let it finish its little ordeal here. I don't know what you guys typically do after repair, if it's feasible where you live to go out and run a drive cycle, particularly when you had a car with, multiple codes like this that, could have been results of just, this wonky idle air control valve. With the mass airflow problems and stuff, what are you chasing? I went with the overall consensus, I guess I'll say, where, we had idle air control valve circuit faults, we had, idle lower than expected or higher than expected, mass airflow. This all tells me, we've got some kind of idle issue. But then we had the rogue large EVAP leak code, which I was concerned, like, okay, probably not related to any of these items. So let's fix what we know's broke. We knew the idle air control valve just didn't have function. It seemed to have control from the ECM, but it just wasn't doing anything. It was kind of sitting there. ECM was trying to command it at 18%, but it just wasn't going that far. So what's broke on it? I don't know. And kind of don't care. Kind of do, kind of don't. But either way, at some point you got to put your curiosity aside and just fix the car. We were fortunate enough to add 2 or 3 of these down at Wilbert's U-Pulling and Bath. Not a sponsor. Marie went down, got us to use one. We slapped it on. Guy ain't got to wait. He can pick his car up tomorrow. The belts will be adjusted. The drive cycles run. We're confident that it's fixed. Chances are the gas hole being crusty around its lips, well, that was our EVAP leak. Let's see. The auto scan results are in. Everything is gone through and passed. No codes in any of the other modules. We just clicked the button we shouldn't have. So we'll get out of there. But I know one button you guys should click, and that's the subscribe button. And when you're done doing that, ring that bell. And while you're down there, leave your questions, comments, criticisms, concern in that comment box below. And just remember, viewers, if I can do it, you can do it. Thanks for watching.